All right, Twitchers. This is Pixologic. These are ZPlays. I'm waiting for everybody to slowly tune in here. We got 56 people. I'm Solomon. This is Michael. This is Kyle. We work for Pixologic ZBrush. And today we're talking with artists from Playtonic Games. These guys developed an amazing game called Yooka-Laylee. If you guys haven't heard of it, we're definitely going to be checking out the game, playing today. Today we're sitting with Steve Mayles, Mark Stevenson, and Kevin, or you go by Kev. Banjo-Kazooie was kind of like the original sort of forefather of this game. So let's go through and Steve Mayles, give me a description of what you did, what you worked on. Good job as far as your titles. You are the character art director. Is that your proper title?
That is my official title, but I never really use it. We're very sort of informal about hierarchy, really. I think we've worked together for so many years before at Rare. We kind of, we know the deal, really.
Yeah, for sure. And Mark, how about you?
I'm very similar, really, to Steve. Primarily a character artist. With a company the size it is, though, you tend to have to be a lot more of a generalist. So, again, did a lot of animation of the characters that we created as well, but all sorts of stuff like UI as well and promotional artwork. My official title on the website is the Director of Technical Art, I think.
Yeah, technical art director is what I've got.
As Steve said, there were 6 of us when we started. It was kind of a bit of an in-joke that everybody was called a director of something because we thought it was funny. But, we don't stand on ceremony and we're not precious about titles and stuff. We try to operate as flat an environment as we possibly can.
Yeah, well, I think that's respectful and respectable, and I feel like that's good for a creative environment, I guess, in that way, where there's really no titles. Everybody's just kind of all hands on deck in that way.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Kev, how about you?
Same as the other guys, really. My background in characters, animation, and design, but I joined the team a little bit later than the other guys, before the founder members got together. I'd actually taken a break from video games for a while. I came back in, and this was just an excellent way to put my foot back into the industry, really. And these guys have been jogging my memory so long ago that I used to make these characters. But no, I'm back into the swing of it now, and I think on the game I was mainly responsible for non-playable characters that you may go up and talk to a few of the enemies. So it's been a good learning process again, and just back in the swing of it now.
Yeah,
I think Kev actually started as a stretch goal on the Kickstarter. It was like a stretch goal that we'd get Kev to come and design a couple of characters for us, and he ended up hooking back up with us.
And it actually happened. That's awesome. So Kev, you're, just for everybody who's listening, your title would be character artist. So you actually you create the characters themselves that the players play in the game.
But all of us, we haven't got any one real discipline. We concept them, we model them, and we animate them. We all work in a similar way, but we've all got a very slightly different style. We can't bounce off each other, so I think Mark's a lot more involved in the nuance of things too at the moment, and Steve probably does a little bit more animation than me, but we all sort of help each other out in different areas, really. So
that's very cool. I love that. So you guys are all you guys all use ZBrush then, I'm guessing, at some point.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. We got plenty to talk about then. So before we get into Michael's kind of our resident gamer at the moment. He's just going through and playing the story. But I'd like to just get a little brief history, if you guys don't mind explaining, as far as because you guys did put together a Kickstarter to get this game going to begin with. So if you guys want to talk about just the history of how this game came to fruition, which was released last year. April, it came out in PlayStation, console games, and then Switch came out later in December, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so go ahead, please explain just the history of the game and how it came to fruition.
Yeah, well, you probably have to start really at the beginning of Playtonic, where there was some guys who were made redundant from Rare, where we all used to work, and then over the months, kind of a small team was assembled to try and make a Kickstarter. The aim being to make a spiritual successor to a game I worked on, well, it's 20 years ago now, Banjo-Kazooie. But you know, we thought we'd probably do okay with the Kickstarter, but what we got, the backing from the fans, was just amazing, and will be forever in their debt. They built Playtonic as a proper company. It's not just funding a game, building a company. We broke a record along the way.
You broke a record along the way?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to
I think
know
we were the fast.
We got into
Sorry.
the Guinness.
I don't
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of origins of Playtonic and Yooka-Laylee has kind of been a long time in the making.
Yeah.
Sort of. There's always been kind of discussions with people that wanted to kind of revitalize the 3D platformer, but there never seemed to be kind of the right point when the right people could come together.
I see.
And kind of Playtonic was kind of that point where we got Steve here, who was the creator of the Banjo-Kazooie characters. We've got Chris Sutherland, who was like the lead programmer and programmed all the characters, did a lot of the voices as well. We've got like the lead artist that worked on that game as well, and myself and Kev have been involved in a lot of things like the Donkey Kong games, and Kev did a lot of Killer Instinct and Battletoads, and
yeah,
so yeah, it was just
I'd like to circle back to
timing
Battletoads and all
anything,
that.
but you know,
Let's talk about
there was enough people to come together and do it.
So Banjo-Kazooie was the three of you kind of connected in that era when you guys were working on those characters in that game, and then eventually over the course of however long it's been in between there, you guys have now developed or created Playtonic games, and which eventually came to this point where you started the Kickstarter, got the game going, and here we are. The game's actually, you know, available now.
Yeah, it's been quite a trip really. I mean, we never, you know, our ambitions for the Kickstarter were a lot smaller, and then it just exploded.
Yeah.
You know, I think we hit our target in about 40 minutes.
Well, that's
and then
incredible.
we went on to
That's how fast
do
your
like a
Kickstarter came through. That's amazing.
And we went on to do like £1 million, I think, in the first 24 hours. So,
Wow.
you know, we kind of had a hope that there were people out there that wanted the same as us to bring back the kind of 3D platformer and like the spiritual successor to Banjo, and it turned out there was a lot of people interested in that.
So all of those people that followed your Kickstarter, supported your Kickstarter, a lot of them are Banjo-Kazooie fans. They're really fans of the history of that game in particular, or that style maybe.
Yeah, I think Banjo's it seems to have a real kind of soft spot for a lot of people. It came at a time, I guess, for a lot of people that are fans, it came when they were growing up, so it kind of had an impact on them and the kind of Nintendo 64 as a whole.
I see.
Yes, it's quite amazing since Banjo's 20th anniversary. It's quite amazing that a game we made 20 years ago, people still, you know, hold it in with such affection.
Yeah, what is it about that game in particular? Do you think that people have that affection for it? Have you figured that out yet? and quick too, Kev,
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, Kev, I thought this was really cool. You also, on top of the fact that you're a 3D artist and you sculpt characters and make characters for video games, but you also did have a voice acting credits list, a pretty incredible list, by the way. I've got here that you've done voice acting for GoldenEye, Killer Instinct, Battletoads, Diddy Kong Racing.
That's a thing?
Yeah.
Voice acting.
We call it voice acting. We've all done a little bit because years ago we didn't have a big budget to employ real voice actors, and so it was about who really didn't mind making a fool of themselves in front of a microphone, and I've never had a problem with that. So I did a lot of the voices of that. There is some inaccuracy. I didn't do any GoldenEye voices. I don't know why.
Okay,
Unless I did it, I might have done a scream or something.
Hey, that counts.
We've all played a part on Yooka-Laylee and done a little bit of voice acting.
So you guys actually have voice acting credits in this game as well, all three of you.
Who voices the snake?
Yeah, but
That's my favorite
Who does the
voice.
snake voice? We got it.
calling it voice acting is quite tenuous because it's, you know, it's kind of like gibberish voices.
Yeah, it's got to be
Best
fun.
voices, like-
They really are. They're very unique. I feel like as soon as I fired the game up and I started noticing the sounds of the characters, I was thinking this must be so fun to just come up with what their voice is gonna sound like.
I mean, we actually had a reward tier on the Kickstarter that I think we must have had around 15 people that did that, so they got their voices in the game as well.
Wow. Okay, before I forget, we're going to start getting into, I want to start talking about how ZBrush comes into play, how you guys design your characters, as well as the game itself. I feel like there's a lot of great sort of stylization to the game that I want to get into. But before we do that, I want to make sure we put out the question for Twitter.
Oh, yes.
So we have a Twitter question. We're going to, if you can answer this question, Kyle, what's the prize?
So you get a copy of the game, but it's console of your choice,
Okay.
and there's also a PC version as well. So I'm going to tweet out the question, make sure you have a Twitter account, and make sure you use the hashtag ZBrushLive.
Hashtag ZBrush Live.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you the question. Those of you that are listening on Twitch, listen up. Okay, so the question or the task would be to provide the exact URL location of the Playtonic Games Yooka-Laylee art dump. And make sure you use the hashtag ZBrush Live. So we're going to be talking about this stuff, so just as long as you're paying attention, should be pretty easy. So now that we got that out of the way, so you guys, as far as I wanted to get into Banjo-Kazooie as a big part of the history of kind of what went into this game. So I'm curious, as far as the stylization, did you guys intentionally develop this game to have that sort of like modern day N64 look and feel to it? Because it almost seems that way.
I guess it was part intention, and it's partly because the people on the team were the same people who did Banjo games, so it was only natural that this was a style we're going to end up with, because it's a style we've done before, it's a style we love, it's a style we're comfortable with.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, as far as I guess if you have such a great appreciation in the Banjo-Kazooie followers, this is, it really has that same look and feel, but everything just looks a ton better as far as, you know, quality and resolution and less faceting edges. You know, like the rocks have these sort of like, you know, if you use ZBrush, the clay polish look on it in that way, the sort of stylized.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have a rock master.
Oh, I never got to that part in the game. There's a whole rock monster. That's great.
The rock master.
I can't get
So,
past
like
this
one of the environment artists, we always used to tease him because the guy that made the rocks.
I'm picturing, have you seen the movie Galaxy Quest with Tim Allen? Benny
Oh,
James?
right, yeah.
That's what I'm picturing in my head. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but.
Well, nothing that exciting.
Well, so we can kind of just get some visual aid here. I mean, because all of you, and for those of you listening, a part of this stream is about talking about the game, you know, in this case is Yooka-Laylee, but then also talking about the design that goes into it, ZBrush being a component that you use as an artistic tool to sculpt and model these characters, environments. I'm assuming you do some of your rocks and environments. So we have the art dump, which is included on our ZBrush central site. So I don't know who's got that. Kingsley, do you have the? Okay, we're gonna pull up some images. I just want to kind of get into your guys' heads as far as the design and what you guys are doing with ZBrush.
This game's really hard, by the way.
Just kind of push and pull, and you don't have to deal with resolution or topology in those cases. Which, speaking of that, so as far as you guys, so you guys are, your pipeline for character work is you're doing all your design work at ZBrush, and then you guys are retopoing for, what engine was this developed with?
We used Unity.
Okay. Okay. So I guess in your experience with Banjo-Kazooie, how different is it for you now compared to your previous work together, as far as the? Well, I can hear myself really loud.
Yeah,
now.
that just cranked up a notch.
As far as the pipeline goes, you know, converting to now Unity, which in the past I don't know what you guys were experienced with, but do you guys feel that it's you guys get to focus more on the story and design elements, or the tech, as far as the technical advancements that have been made in video games, especially since then?
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
Yeah,
Years
I'm
ago
asking
when we
long
were
questions, so, jeez.
3D models, we were using NURBS, even what was then Power Animate, Maya now. And I think we were just at a point where ZBrush, I think version ZBrush 2 that we started using way back then, to just create normal maps for some of our characters. I think it was, we used it for PD0 when that was in development. You could use it from start to finish now, right? Enhance the look of the character. So it's it's got just as many features as the software that we used to use, but you've got the flexibility of being able to use a piece of software, and we're really comfortable with Maya, but we tend to use ZBrush to take everything to the next step, then may put it back into Maya to make it actual usable model for the game.
Yeah. What do you guys
We're
think
just getting audio feedback again.
What do you guys think? What's the most challenging aspect of building a game like this, as far as your experience together? Is there any one thing that stands out more than other?
I think for this, because we were like a new team, like 6 people. I think our ambition was definitely high. We used a lot of content for such a small company. So, I mean that's definitely where tools like ZBrush anyway help get things a lot faster. So, yeah, I think the challenge is, certainly on this was learning a new engine, working like multi-platform, what we've never really done before, and building a company.
That's kind of a lot. That's a lot in the mix there for sure. I guess there's no way to specify on any one thing. Sorry, that's a tough question. So for you guys,
The other guys have any thoughts?
What's that?
I don't know if the other two have any thoughts on what they.
Yeah, do you guys? What do you guys think?
It was probably hard to keep the poly count down, because we're like in the sleep shop. We were like, we can do what we like, basically. Maybe a bit crazy with the count in some areas, and that had to be reined in and optimized towards the end of the project.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because we started developing it on, so you can kind of blind without the limitations of all the different systems, and it wasn't until we got our first few builds that we knew where we were going to be with everything. But I think this time around, next game that we actually produce, we've got a better idea of limitations of systems and where to aim for as a benchmark.
Right. And you guys are still working on you're still working on completing Yooka-Laylee as far as making additions to it, right? You guys have things that you're working on currently, correct?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Obviously,
games
things
these
that
days,
specifics we
they're
can't
never
talk
finished.
about.
Sorry?
I said specifics, of course, we can't talk about, but just generally speaking, you guys are working on expanding this story, this particular story.
There was always plans to do DLC and stuff as part of it. As I said, like these days with games, you never kind of finished.
Yeah.
You're always kind of spending time listening to feedback from people and improving stuff. You know, we spent a lot of the past year after we launched initially doing a lot of improvements and modifications based on feedback we had.
Right. Do you guys find that a little strange? As far as, I mean, for me, I grew up playing, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, 64. Like, the game was the game. That was it. You got start to finish, and now so many of these games are sort of just never-ending, expansive universes almost, where they just keep adding, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love it. It's just, it's still very weird for me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with the major AAA titles, they all seem to be heading towards this kind of games as a service thing. And I kind of understand it with those, because like they're very expensive to make those kind of games, so hundreds of millions of dollars. And,
right.
That's the one thing that has happened over the years. Making games has got so much more expensive, and the expectations of what the fans want have gone up and up and up, and with the quality of everything has just gone up exponentially. Whereas on the N64 we were building characters with a few hundred polygons.
Which, if you're not
and textures
familiar,
that were 32 by 32.
oh
You know,
gosh,
now it's like
how strange is
the amazing
that?
advancement,
I mean, you guys get
the
to
amazing
now,
advancement stuff as well is like just makes it so much easier to
right?
kind of go mad.
Right. What's the average poly count for your high-res characters in ZBrush, for example? Like, what would be the highest that you had? Maybe the rock character might be the highest.
In the actual ZBrush poly count.
Yeah, because obviously you're gonna have to retypo and bring it down to it. What is your in-game res, if you guys can say?
I mean, I thought,
Depends on what
you know, I thought we were kind of, by today's standards, I thought we were kind of okay. You know, most characters were less than 10,000 polys.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, we're learning to optimize even more now. You know, you can always keep stripping stuff out.
Right.
I guess people are surprised. Characters are quite, you know, they're not covered in masses of detail.
Right. Yeah, because in this case,
so,
you guys, as designers, you're focusing more on the stylization, character silhouette.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Which definitely shows. I mean, all the characters are very centered in this world, which is great, and it's a very cool game. I got a chance to play a little bit.
That's my favorite character.
Michael's still going through. The snake has become our favorite character. The snake is he's such a hustler. The snake is just constantly busy doing stuff all the time.
Voice too.
And the best voice.
The best voice, best pants. Has a tie but no neck. It's perfect.
Going back a little bit,
Yes.
did you guys have to optimize a lot for the Switch version that just launched?
Oh yeah, good question.
So there were certain things with Yooka-Laylee Unity was the first time engine, so you're always kind of learning how best to kind of do things for the engine. So there was quite a few things we did, just like things like combining meshes and stuff like that, that helped performance lots.
Yeah.
We certainly didn't go in and kind of remodel characters and things like that. A lot of it was just, you know, going back and doing stuff that we found worked better for how Unity kind of likes to work.
Right.
We had to lose a few expensive things like screen-based effects, ambient, real-time ambient occlusion, and depth of field. But other than that, it's pretty much on parity with the other console versions.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Real-time ambient occlusion, as far as that's relatively new. That's not something you formerly had access to in most platform games, correct?
Well, it's been around for a bit, the technique of screen space ambient occlusion, but it's always been one of those ones that's quite expensive.
Right.
I remember, like, when I was still working at Rare, we were looking at it when we were doing Xbox 360 stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty a common kind of effect these days. But, you know, with every kind of console, you have to kind of pick what you can and can't do. They're
Right.
all kind of slightly different. They're
Sure.
good at and what they're not.
So as far as the rest of the game goes, I mean, Michael's been playing right now. How many of you is there anything that you guys have put into this game in particular that you see the community hasn't found, or maybe some secrets, Easter eggs, things like that? Any hints you want to give those Twitch users out there?
Myself, I'm sure there must be something. Our environment artists are good at writing sneaky little things. But there's definitely some fans out there who are kind of very into the game, you know. There's a wiki that's been set up, and I sometimes think they know more about the game than we do.
Well, I guess that's a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
At least you know you have dedicated fans and people that love the game and love that history.
Yeah.
don't know how to get on top of this thing. I'm supposed to go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What's going on?
What's the age group this is targeted for? This is like the hardest game I've played since Nintendo. Or challenge.
We actually made that was a good thing with the feedback we get from the community. We actually made the that we put out there a lot easier to play by putting a lot of hints. The signposts telling you which way to go. Because when you're sitting making the game yourselves, you get used to knowing where to go and you just take everything for granted. But put it in the hands of somebody that's never seen it. It's quite a big, massive world, so it needed a little bit of.
Yeah, I would think. I guess that's kind of what I was leading towards with that question. I was asking about just technical workflows that are much easier now, where I look at some of those older games, those 64 games, there wasn't as much of the logic in place as far as like the design of a level or a game, as far as the environment goes. I feel like games have gotten so much better at formulating the space that you're in and really thinking about what a person might do if they go in this direction and they're gonna get lost. Like what you're saying, Kev, about thinking about the logic in that way. I would think that's got to be something you spend a lot of time on in a level, just building a level, even considering the layout and what the user's experience is going to be like.
We've got a good now, and we've originally got a smaller team, and so now a bigger process before the background artists actually start putting together all of the polish, and we start off with a very crude looking functional level, and then that's tried out. We put everything together and make sure all of the design aspects work, and then once we're happy with that, we start dressing everything up. But I think with Yooka in particular, for me, as I say, I took a step out of the industry, and so game development process has changed a little bit from when I'd last worked on games. But now everything we do, it gets tried and tested before everybody sets about putting everything together. So there's a lot of design going on. There's a lot of heads talking about how things should play. We're confident that everything that we do is in vain, and it's all going in the right direction.
Yeah,
it's very different to how
right.
This began in the industry. Just make it up as you go along in something.
Yeah, that's got to be so. I mean, I feel like that would be the most fun part about building a game like this, is being able to rework those things and kind of collaborate and figure out, just making little tweaks here and there, instead of like, I don't know, the creative process it can get a little lulling if you just go through the workflows of just topology and maps and blah, blah, blah. But you guys are kind of just organically, it seems like you're organically just kind of building this thing and rearranging some things until it works. Is that about right?
Sometimes you may get maybe a part of the level, like it's crying out for a certain character in a certain place, and maybe it presents a new design aspect. And so sometimes there's some surprises in there that we don't originally set out to incorporate into design. So it's part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael?
I think I'm doing well now. Oh wait, here we go.
So, let's talk a little bit about the game modes. I mean, you got the main story. I did scope out. There's a couple sort of like party games. There's some multiplayer, which I feel like Kyle, you should jump on, unless you're super busy. What kind of game modes do you guys have as outside of just the regular story?
We have there's like 8 kind of little kind of mini games that you can play. They're like kind of designed to be local multiplayer, so you can have up to But you also come across 5 of those games where you're actually playing them in adventure. There's also kind of a very light mode where older players, you know, be able to help their kids that trying to get to control.
Let's do it.
I think the B team it's called is like the Bs, and they can kind of assist the lead player.
Looks like Michael's loading. What did you load?
Something. It's 2 players. It's Ken and Kyle.
Oh, I did get a chance to play this one.
I don't
This
know.
is cool. This is it's very fast paced.
Right, don't die, Kyle.
Invincibility. I win.
Wait. Loot?
So did you guys get it? What about these like this environment, for example? Did you guys get to do as far as like the cracks, maybe the details using ZBrush at all?
Reverse controls.
Reverse.
A lot, yeah. I mean, a lot. You know, I think ZBrush probably touches most
Take your stuff.
aspects in the game at this point.
Yeah.
Are we
We have no kind of
I don't know, but stop hitting.
kind of method of how everybody does things. Everybody does things slightly different, you know.
Right.
But yeah, definitely like ZBrush is definitely a thing that we use pretty much on everything. You know,
Hey,
which is
that's good to hear.
I think one of the biggest challenges to resist trying to put too much detail in as well. It's so easy to do it.
I see. So you have that urge where you might want to go in and do like some skin pores or some wrinkles and things.
Yeah,
You're like, we just
exactly.
can't do that.
You could. Damn, Kyle. Back.
So, okay, so this is PvP.
Apparently.
Yeah, this is the first thing I played, and I had no idea what was going on.
I think I'm winning. Wait, barely.
And also, while these guys are goofing around playing the game, if anybody has questions in the Twitch stream, we want to make sure that we
This one
can.
right here.
Oh, you do have a question? Okay. Guys, we have a question for you from the stream.
The Benjo Man.
Yep.
What is your favorite ZBrush feature when modeling?
If you could pick one.
We swear we didn't make that question ourselves.
It's from the Benjo Man.
Yeah, that's not us.
Banjo Man?
Benjo?
He's a fan.
Guys, you've got one.
I don't know, maybe insert curve brushes, surface noise, nano mesh. I don't see you guys using much nano mesh or array mesh in here. Maybe this platform.
No.
Losing.
I'm a guy who means when I use it. I think one of the tools I use like polish brushes.
Yeah. Maybe like clay polish and Dynamesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely one of my top 10s.
I think we mentioned Dynamesh before. That's much essential, I think, to everybody. ZBrush work right now.
Okay. Yep. That's definitely.
I mean, combining Dynamesh with the CD mesher is really powerful.
Yeah. So you guys do a little
Yeah.
Z remeshing. Do you guys prefer to sculpt? Like, I don't know about you. When I'm sculpting a Dynamesh, I kind of get to a point where I like to sculpt amongst subdivisions, so high to low. I find it much easier, especially with stylized, to be able to just shape a character at a very low poly resolution. You have less verts to deal with. It's easier to control larger areas. It's just softer almost in that way. Whereas Dynamesh, as you get up to, 1 million or 2 million, it becomes a little, you get that sort of lumpy sculpture. It gets harder to clean up, because it's like just dense.
It's a way of working, isn't it? Sometimes I find myself wanting to do things in a slightly different way just to keep it fresh.
One more, then I'll
Sometimes
keep an eye on the
I
chat.
want to do with Dynamesh, or sometimes I want block a character out into ZBrush and go visions, or even block it out and then use Dynamesh straight away in ZBrush. I think it keeps it fresh to change the workflow slightly.
That's good insight. What about you, Kev?
I was just thinking about that. Steve about it earlier.
It's tough.
I quite like to get if I've got a high res model, sort of retopologize it. So I can just make it work when it goes back into Maya if I want to thread a skeleton through it. But I think the one feature I think use that I don't see the other guys using, because we've all got a slightly different workflow method. Is my models create all of my maps using export all the maps.
Oh, so you're using
Get all
the
my normal
multi-map exporter plugin?
Or I might mask by smoothness and create a mask from that to add some extra definition. So
yeah, I mean, that's as far as like the game workflow, it's different for those people that don't use ZBrush. I guess it's eventually you can sculpt that character as high res as you want and put in all those details, but eventually you're going to have to consolidate and bring it back down to a manageable level to put in the engine, which is always challenging, I bet, no matter what. I mean, my experience, topology, topology is topology. We still, even with ZBrush, we have ZRemesher, which, I don't know, have you guys found ZRemesher to be something that you can use as an automated tool to put a character in game, or is it just not perfectly animated?
I probably wouldn't use it to create my final mech, but I find it incredibly useful. I like to get stuff in as early as do stuff in context, and you kind of get an idea of how it works a lot quicker, and you kind of get an idea of how far you want to go with it, kind of detail as well, because you know at some point you're not going to see any more detail, so it gives you a good idea. Every mesh is really good stuff in the game, quickly seeing it.
Right.
And then, but we would probably use Maya to create the topology.
It's good just to sculpt into the mesher, because you've got nothing to lose. It takes seconds to come up with topology, which may or may not be useful for the game first time. So it's always a good step to try. I mean, and you don't have to use the whole, maybe take 67% of every create, then maybe you find there. It is a very good tool.
Yeah, I definitely do that as well.
You do as well?
As a start. And refine it.
I'm so bad at this.
One thing I wanted to ask you guys too is, as far as your design workflow, I mean, like if you look at stylized games, like I look at Blizzard, for example, they have a huge collection of sort of like Warcraft style custom brushes that are like very stylized for chiseling rock or doing a certain kind of indentation. Did you guys make your own custom brush sets or stylized tools in ZBrush while you were working on these assets?
Not.
Or you guys are just like in sync and you just get it? Maybe that's, sorry, that's too much. That's just something I'm always curious about, because especially in a stylized world, like for example, clay polish in Dynamesh, that kind of has consistently will apply the same sort of like polished, hard-edged looking effect by just automating that with Dynamesh. But then there's sometimes where you go in by hand, maybe using the trim dynamic or the H polish brush to like flatten edges or something. So I don't know, sometimes I see certain teams of people where they'll just make a set of tools and they'll share that amongst themselves. Or it just seems like you guys just gel really well and you know what you're kind of working towards, so you just organically do that or naturally do that in that way. So yeah, sorry.
H polish.
That's in everyone's top 3.
Yeah, really.
The Damien Standard brush is just, it goes forever.
Inflate is another one of those brushes that can save a design. If it's gone a little bit dry, it's right, something not quite right. There's certain brushes you can just quickly try, and it may or may not save time. And inflate is one of those brushes.
Right.
Oh, and pinch.
Pinch. He's a big fan of pinch. Yeah, I could see that. Like if I'm looking at some of your just, you know, if you just like need to pinch an edge of a rock, or maybe need to pinch like the corners of, the main character's name is Yuka, correct? Yuka is the green, the lizard. Or
I always use pinch for. I'm doing cloth, and I got two things together. I'll just inflate it and then pinch them together.
That's nice. I like that. I could see that working for sure. Like Yuka's got the sort of like ridges around his eyes that sort of taper backwards. That could totally just be a little pinch right there. You just maybe a little Damien standard with reverse with Z add.
Yeah, I think mainly this is 8 columns going on.
This is the stuff I want to get into, guys. What about, do you guys use custom UIs? Do you guys use the standard UI?
A little bit. I mean, I've customized mine. I want to customize it. It was one of those things that I'll around to doing that when I've got spare minutes, but of course you don't get those spare minutes.
Sure.
So I have done a little bit, as I probably should do.
We should just as a gift, I'll make you guys a Yooka-Laylee styled custom UI with colors and everything. See if you guys are interested.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've done a bit of customization. So
We could share it too. We did that.
I'd like to get into it a bit more.
Yeah. I teach ZBrush as well, so I have to be careful about using custom tools and moving things around because I have to know where everything is by default. But like, when I'm at work, I want to use my custom UI.
You could move like from desk to desk and help people with what they were doing, and then the point where everything's kind of eyes off, and you pick up somebody's mouse to try and help them. You couldn't use it because they customized their interface so much.
Yeah, and that's one of the most frustrating things, right? That's just, you can't adapt that quickly. It takes time you have to be comfortable in that situation, I would think.
Yeah, but it's fine because you just your desk instead and do it on your setup.
Well, is there anything that you guys wanted to mention as far as Yooka-Laylee or Playtonic games? Anything that we haven't touched on? I want to make sure that we get a chance to discuss all of these things.
What spot now?
Any news or information as far as the game goes? Anything current that that's coming up soon, or any announcements or anything like that? Everything's hush hush at this point, huh?
I can't think about it. I mean, I'm working on things since we completed Yooka-Laylee, which we're not talking about at this minute. We're still, again, never really finished these days. We're still working on. We're planning on adding more languages as well.
So you guys are transcribing the game in other languages?
The feedback that we're getting on forums and on Twitter and addressing things that we feel we should.
You mentioned you guys are transcribing in other languages. Is that as far as like, is that per platform? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
I think just before Christmas we released Korean on the PS4.
Oh, okay.
And Chinese on Steam. So, yes, some of it is per platform, but we try as hard as possible to bring it to every platform.
Well, I have to say the game is very colorful. I love the stylization. For some reason, I love this sort of. I love that clay polished sort of stylized world, and it's always very visually pleasing to me for some reason. But which is I think why I sort of referenced Blizzard in that way, where that they sort of have that, more closer to realism in that way, but still. He's pointing at you.
Do you look at this dinosaur's name? Strange Polygonal Dinosaur. That's his official name.
He looks like Z-Sphere topology.
I love it.
You're using
You're using what?
just because of nature, polygonal model.
Yeah.
It just allows you to follow the lines. And when you think about a tiny screen like a Nintendo Switch, everything's about even smaller and on a tiny screen, so Expect more clay pot.
I do love that though, because that is a throwback reference to, and even the coin, the necklace that he's wearing, it's 8-bit. It looks like an 8-bit graphic, which is great.
This guy is retro. He got left behind in the N64.
Yeah.
That's so cool. It's like there's a wood. Isn't there a Pokemon that was called was it Polygon or
Porygon?
Porygon? Oh, I thought they had one that was Poly something. Pokemon.
I think the irony here as well is that Retro was designed like an N64 character, very polygonal, but he's probably still many polygons N64 character would have been.
Yeah, this guy's great. This is the new one for me. I haven't seen him before. Oh, they actually have a. So you guys have a.
I think it's taking me back to the thing.
Cardos karting.
Which is what I just.
So all the racing editions, I'm sure you guys learned a lot in your experience with well, you guys who worked on Diddy Kong? Diddy Kong Racing. Kev, you worked on Diddy Kong. I guess all of you collectively worked on Diddy Kong Racing as well.
I was on.
Is the what's it like building just like a racing game is a little bit of a different sort of logic that goes into it. I mean, I guess essentially, like, are there any like certain challenges that you find in a racing addition to your game as opposed to a first-person, third-person character walkthrough?
Diddy Kong Racing was because you also got the adventure, and there was the different vehicles. The biggest challenge we had with that was just getting the polycart down because it had to run at a big frame rate, and you look at it now, it sort of chugs along with frames to 15, and I think unless you did everything as right, you wouldn't get a smooth crash rate. So everything had to be dirt cheap, and you have the level of detail not further away from the camera. And I can remember looking at some of those levels, and they were literally just a prism with 4 little squares at either corner of it to make it like a vehicle. Because the resolution was so late.
Interesting.
At the time, it didn't seem quite such a limitation, but now, of course, it's gone. And you'll probably be able to cope with that problem.
Right.
I just figured out I have a horn.
This reminds me of another racing game. Just the topographical view.
What was that off-road game where you could just spin the wheel?
Did you guys play the off-road game where you just throw the wheel? It was just like it had no tension. It just was like a full like rotating axle.
Was it super off-road or Mickey Thompson or
something off-road? Yeah, it definitely has that feel. I
super
love it. Super off-road, is that right?
Okay.
Paulo is
I did some graphics.
Yeah, you could literally just fling it, and then you just fling it the other way.
Just keep spinning.
Yeah.
The actual car will do 360.
Yeah.
This
do
does
donuts.
That. See? Here we go.
Oh, this is cool. So how many other additions do you guys have to the game outside? Is there anything else besides like in the story mode? Like you've got racing. Are there any flying levels or like Diddy Kong Racing had planes, for example?
So I mean, this is a spoiler, but as you get obviously find new moves, which is kind of one of the ways that the banjo game works. So you do get an ability to fly yourself.
Oh, that's cool.
The final level quite fast, and you would need to fly around for different levels.
Trophy.
Right.
We also have transformations.
Oh, yeah.
So every level has its own unique transformation. Talk to the crazy scientist, because if you collect the right token, the molecule for her, she'll give you a transformation. So on this level, the jungle level, you turn into some crazy plant. As we've got no plan. And there's basically a different transformation on every level. So it changes up how you control the character. It's a bit of a slightly different experience.
I think the snowplow model is on the gallery that
The
in
ZBrush
graphics
Central
stuff.
Gallery? Okay. Can we pull that up really quick, Kingsley? Oh, sorry. You need to see it.
Adjustments.
That's a vehicle that you turn on different, and it's specific on a certain level, so that you got to task using transformation.
Kingsley's pulling up the Yooka-Laylee art dep again. Yeah, so if you
what the environment they want it to look like. With the characters, they're often conversations and as jokes. Like I think Bowser was a bit of a joke to Snake.
yeah.
You know, a really kind of rubbish post-it note drawing from a great director. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times just discussion. And, I think maybe, you know, I like to think games reflect members of the team in some capacity as well, and our humour and our kind of interest and stuff. Good face.
You just unlocked a tonic?
I don't know, but what is this character?
She's wearing a bandana.
It was like Lucille Ball.
Beautiful, isn't it?
And
She's
she's
a scary
gorgeous.
vending machine.
I can't believe I got that award. You missed something epic right now.
Was that a challenging thing to do?
Without the camera facing the right direction.
Sorry, I was listening to Mark and I was looking over at you, like back and forth, but I didn't really.
I like went through an obstacle course for that.
It's so funny.
In 13 seconds.
Yeah, actually, at first I was like, oh, this isn't gonna be my cup of tea, but just as far as like getting up to some of those higher elevated parts, it is challenging.
Yeah, with like most modern games nowadays, you're basically just watching it and kind of just getting through it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that was part of our kind of the banjo games as well. It's like
to not that feel.
Yeah,
you hold the player's hand, you give them the world, and there's a lot to do. Kind of come around in your own time and find stuff to do. And,
I think that's why I suck at this so much. I haven't played like old
in a really short size and just get something for ages if you want.
Yeah. Did you guys consider that as far as how much you wanted to be discoverable territory and what you wanted to lead the gamer into?
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely a thing I wanted to avoid. Having just following instructions, do this.
Yeah.
But you have to put some guidance at the start because again, people don't know how to control it, what.
Sure.
You know, it's a balancing act.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine that's got to be. You probably have to consider a lot of factors to make a decision on how much you want to give somebody and how much you want to leave up to, you know, the adventure part of the game, because that's why we play games. You know, it's like you don't want to be forced or just, you know, spoon-fed everything. In some ways, you want it to be some sort of an entertaining, and part of entertainment is challenge.
Tips on this part though. What am I doing?
Yeah, you can't have tips for Michael.
That looks like a puzzle.
I'm not sure if you have the move. You need like the
what happens?
if you slam move.
It shoots you with lasers.
If you jump in the air and press the left shoulder trigger.
Jump and press the left trigger?
Alright, let's see.
I don't think you've unlocked the move.
Yeah, you need to...
Oh, I have to stomp that thing or something?
You have to go and buy the move from Trousers.
Alright, I gotta go back to the business snake.
Go back to business snake. The hustler snake.
Yeah, I mean, it's even little things like that, but the intensity is, you know, in games like Banjo-Kazooie, moves in a set order, but we have to embrace the kind of freedom that we want. So, you know, moves, vibing rather than any way.
And if you're struggling with any level, and you make it to the end, have got the fly move, you can come back to any of the earlier levels, then you can climb and absolutely enjoy the level.
Ah, okay.
Alright, I think I need
Buddy Slam.
Buddy Slam.
Well, do we have you have any questions on the stream, by the way? I haven't asked you.
But the worlds are quite large, and they might seem quite daunting to you. Not quite know what to do. But just when you think that you've got yourself on track, you can expand the worlds and stay twice as much area to explore.
Right, and as you guys are developing more DLC, you'll be expanding that.
Yes.
That
so
space.
what you're playing at the moment is only half of that. So there's another world that's not expanded.
I need 7 more quills to afford that move.
7 quills? Okay.
I'm light.
Well, again, I want to make sure that I give my proper appreciations and respect. I think the game is very beautiful. It's very well crafted. You guys have put together a very nice game, and it's not necessarily, you know, what I'm going to go home and play, but it definitely appreciate the art and the quality. And I have to say, I did not think that I was going to want to play this from start to finish, but the challenging parts are, like, even racing that stupid cloud at the beginning of the game. I could not beat that stupid cloud. And I was like, oh, I have to play this. I got to beat this, you know.
Did you beat it yet?
No,
Again,
actually, Michael did.
I eventually did.
Moves and abilities that you can then make that easy for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, because sometimes I just look at it and I go, it's 8 and up. I think is what your rating is. So I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be like. Maybe I'm just too old for that. But the child comes out in me as soon as I get that controller and I start playing, and I'm like,
That's what attracted me to these guys was
Dude, the
the
arcade games
connection.
We were sleeping on the arcade games. Those are fun. We just played those the first time today.
I know. This is something that, and also respects due, just as far as these sort of adventure sort of, it's a throwback nod to almost the Nintendo 64 era, which I think we've kind of forgotten what those kinds of games, how fun those kinds of games are. It's
I
like
want to play Donkey Kong now.
Yeah, exactly. And there's very few titles
hard.
that come out in most platforms these days that on the AAA scale, I guess. Everybody's more into shooters and action adventure in that way, but
well, this is kind of making a comeback though. You're starting to see games a little
Definitely.
bit
Yeah,
more like
especially
this,
like
especially with Nintendo Switch.
Right, Nintendo Switch kind of represents that community of people that appreciate that. Kyle here is like the biggest fan of this right here. Like, more so, and I don't get enough chance to play, and this makes me want to jump in and actually go through and play the whole story. But just to make sure, if anybody has any last questions on Twitch before we let these guys go, I don't want to take too much of your time. It's what is it, 6 o'clock for you guys? After 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the end of their day and it's the start of ours, so we don't want to take too much of your time. But
We do have a winner.
we have the
copy of
winner.
game.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
So we have a Twitter winner with the handle Hick Joel from
Nice.
Birmingham, UK, and he would like a Switch version of the game.
All right.
So, congrats
Congratulations.
to him, yes. Well done.
Birmingham, UK.
Yep, representing.
Wow,
So,
just down the road.
yeah.
Well, Steven,
Hand deliver.
Kev, do you guys have any last comments or anything else that you want to mention before we let you guys go? That's very nice of you to say. I know a lot of people here that will appreciate that, and I guess with ZBrush especially, we not only hope to shape tools and the way that ZBrush works for multiple industries, but also just for the artist, from an artistic perspective, and what the creative process sort of needs, especially in this digital world. That sometimes it can get a little technical. So I feel like ZBrush becomes that sort of freeing space where you just get to kind of work and then just be in that full 100% creative space in that way. Which, if you guys get that feeling,
can you tell us?
Any secrets?
Oh, okay. Well, now I'm gonna have to be the one in the hot seat and say, we can't talk about those things at this time.
Shut it down.
No, we'll definitely be having some things that I think you guys will love very soon. That's about all I can say.
More H polish brushes.
Yeah, just a whole library of H polish brushes, A
We
through
can
Z.
talk offline about all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure. Oh, and by the way, we will.
We love. Earlier you mentioned the we said was our favourite. The addition of that manipulator.
Oh, the deformers? Did you say the manipulator
Yes.
tools? Ah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. A lot of CG people out there have been waiting for that gizmo in ZBrush, which is, it's a long time coming. I don't know about you guys, but I got so used to the transpose tool and found it, I think it's amazing for posing or like when I'm sculpting, if I just want to bend something very quickly. I like using transpose because there's all those other things. But gizmo is amazing because when you just want to move things around, it makes more sense in that situation. So,
You do end up using both. in
Yeah,
your Flow,
yeah.
If you're used to transpose.
Definitely, if you've had enough time in ZBrush trying to. Transpose is like another language in some ways, where you just got to figure out how to work it, you know. But yeah, no. But thank you guys, Kev. I'm glad you mentioned the deformer tools, because those are some of my new favorite additions. I love to use those. Just Gizmo, the primitives, all of that stuff is, and there's definitely more advancements to come as far as that goes. So we will definitely be putting out some new stuff as soon as possible. But hopefully, you know, we can get together and do this again if you guys are doing any other DLC or anything else in the future. New games. Yeah. And I want to make sure that we will, if anybody's interested, we will make a custom UI, a Yooka-Laylee official custom UI, and we'll send it to you guys. We'll do colors and everything.
Found a ghost.
Oh wow,
I can see all purple, greens, blues. The color palette choices in the game are gonna be awesome. Anyway, so it looks like we've gotten through everything. There's no more questions. So thank all of you three. We appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to sit. For tuning in. This has been another ZPlay. If you guys want to check out any of our other ZPlays, just go to ZBrushLive.com. We've got all the information there, and we're trying to do more of these this year on a regular basis. So we'd appreciate feedback, comments, questions. If you guys have questions for these guys, or if you want to contact them, if as far as your guys' art pages, are you guys on ZBrush Central, ArtStation, or any other locations?
Social media accounts.
Social media. Well, those of you that were paying attention, we did mention the ZBrush Central URL location. So if you just go to ZBrushCentral.com, you could do ZBrush Central and just type in, just Google ZBrush Central Yooka-Laylee. You'll find these guys' posts. You can actually go in there, comment on the work, and you know, if you're in those listeners that don't use ZBrush or are new or just stumbling upon this, just head over to ZBrushCentral.com or ZBrushLive.com, and you'll find out all you need to know. So yeah, done with all the plugs. But again, thank you guys. We appreciate everything.
Thank you.
And we will sign out for now. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.